It says it's being recorded.
Oh, good. So I forgot to record the Q&A, but I am recording this part. So let's hope that I'm somewhat coherent. I was going to talk about Apple Intelligence. A couple things to know about Apple Intelligence. I'm running the new operating system, and there is a new icon up in the corner for Siri. So you can sit here and ask Siri. Some things you will note when you install it for the first time is that it goes through and asks you to talk to Siri so it knows how to do things. And but there's also a new um, control panel in the Apple settings. So you can go and say, do you want Apple Intelligence? Yes. Do you want to accept Siri requests? Yes. You can say whether you want it to say, hey Siri or Siri. You don't have to say, hey Siri anymore. You can just say Siri. Allow Siri when it's locked, command key, a whole bunch of other things you can do with Siri. It's worth looking those over. And among other things, you can also change the voice that Siri uses. I like to use Irish uh, woman's voice for reasons that I really can't explain. Um, it's just different. But one thing that to note is that a lot of people don't understand things that you can do with the keyboard. It says here you can press either command key twice. And the command key is the one that's got the clover leaf. You press that twice and it'll bring up Siri. But you can also use the keyboard for other things. Like a lot of people, they want to find something. If you press the command key, which is the clover leaf key, and now I don't want to enable Siri. Right? If you press the command key and the space bar, it brings up the search box. And a lot of people don't know that. I've seen a lot of people go around looking for a way to do a search. And the easiest way is just press the command key and the space bar, and it brings up the search box. And my HomePod behind me is telling me how to use Siri. So I'm going to it's still trying to tell me that. But go into settings and just look at what it says about Apple Intelligence and decide what you want to do. I don't want it to launch Apple Intelligence by pressing the command key twice because I'm afraid I might use it by accident. It doesn't mean that eventually I might change my habit, but I haven't selected that, but it's got other choices that are worth looking at. Um, and it's also got some new security features and a whole bunch of other things to do. Speaking of which, even though this has nothing to do with the topic today, I want to talk something about the display. The display I have right now, Minion is the name of my Mac Mini. I'm not going to explain why. And Dungeness is the name of my TV set. And I have it set right now at a particular resolution. So if I um, click on Minion, and isn't that under display? Uh, maybe I can't do it because I'm mirroring it. You can change the resolution. This resolution, I have it set fairly large so that you can see it on the screen, but I can shrink things down so I can get a lot more on the screen. A lot of people don't realize you can change the resolution of the screen. So um, do pay attention to some with these things when you first start using Sequoia. Just go through the various settings and just see what's available because there's probably something there you don't know that you had. These widgets, for example, I added them. Here it's telling me that Swim's getting kind of cold and it's giving me times in various time zones and there's calendar. And this is the battery level of my mouse and my keyboard. They don't have to be here. I stuck them there so I can show you how they work. When it comes to the Apple Intelligence, the first thing you have to know is that whenever possible, Apple Intelligence never leaves your machine. So you make a request, and the query never leaves your machine. So if I type in what time is it, it comes back with the time. It says it's 1909 because I have things set to a 24-hour clock. Um, but if I were to ask Siri, Siri, what time is it? And of course, nothing wants to answer. because I have too many devices running Siri. But anyway, if I asked the same thing, it would just come back and it would speak the answer and tell me the time. So that's the sort of thing that Siri can do without going out and asking anything else. If I asked it to show me all my recent files, Siri can do that without going and asking Apple anything. For other things, it does require some connection to the outside world. So for example, messages. This is a fake user. Peter is a fake user, so he doesn't really get any text messages because, among other things, he doesn't have a phone. But I sent Peter some text messages just so he'd have something to say. And one of the new things that you don't really see here is that it will try and summarize text messages. And you can't see that because the way I sent these things to it. But the other thing I wanted to show you is that if I send things to Peter, I can decide where they come from. Normally, there are three different ways you can get a text message on a Mac. One is to have it sent to your telephone. If it's sent to your telephone, it will not appear on your Mac. And that's one thing to notice. You'll see things on your telephone that don't show up on your Mac. And that's because it was sent to the telephone number. If it's sent to the telephone number, it's also tracked by the phone company as a message. And if it's sent to your telephone number, it cannot be encrypted. And the reason it can't be encrypted is it's sent over something called SMS, Simple Messaging Service. SMS has to be standardized so that anything that's accepting SMS can read it, and it can't be encrypted because it doesn't know who it's going to. It doesn't know it's going to a Samsung or it's going to an old Nokia handset, or it doesn't know. So if it's going to a telephone, it'll be tracked on your message count. So if you get limited messages a month, you will be charged for it. If you send it to an email address, though, it goes out as data. If it goes out as data, it can be encrypted, it can go to your Mac, and it can go to your phone both. So if you send something to an email address, as long as both your Mac and your phone are set up to accept that email address as a source, it'll come to both of them, and nobody gets charged if you have to pay per message. You can send thousands of messages and they don't get charged because it's going out of your data plan. Now, in my case, Peter has both things he's accepting things from iCloud, but he's also accepting things from Gmail. So if you send something to Peter Lyon, this fake person, over Gmail, it shows up in messages. If you send it to iCloud, it shows up in messages. If you send it to both, it shows up in messages. And that's something that you should think about because A, it can be encrypted, and B, nobody gets charged for it. Messages are really small, unless you include something like, in my case, I included some images, and you can send movies and a whole bunch of other things. But the text itself, that text, it takes next to no time at all to send that text. A regular voice phone call that lasts 5 minutes is using up as much bandwidth as thousands of text messages. So the phone companies are making a bundle off of text messages. Email is somewhat similar to think about. Peter Lyon has two different email accounts. He's got a Google account, and he's got a iCloud account, and both of them appear in this single pane up at all inboxes. If I want to look at just the Google, I come down here. If I want to look at the iCloud, I look up here. You notice that his email is color-coded. That's because Peter, when he went into settings, he said rules. And if it comes from Apple, it's going to be in blue. If it comes from the Washington Post, it's going to be in purple, and so on and so forth. So this is something that you can set up, and to show you how to do it. News from Apple, I say edit, and it says, if it comes from any of these addresses, I set the color of the background to blue. And it's as simple as that to make it color-coded. And I like to do color code messages because if it comes from Kathleen or my daughter or my brothers, it's nice that I pay attention to it. It doesn't just show up as just another random white message. This random white message here is from OWC Other World Computing, they specialize in Mac products and they're having a sale, so it's nice to know. TripAdvisor, I never pay any attention there. I just stuck in TripAdvisor so that Peter would get some mail so I could demonstrate it. But that's something to note is that you can have multiple accounts and you can set them. But what's different now is if you come up here to a Washington Post article, trending now, whether you're a first-time Thanksgiving host or just looking for a little recipe inspiration, that's this message here. If you look at this, that's a summary, and it's taking that summary from the uh, first paragraph here. It's adding that as a summary. So you can see what the message is about without actually opening the message. And Philippines pivots from battling militants to projecting something rather. And you won't see that anywhere in here. It doesn't actually say that. So where is this text coming from? It looked at the text message that came from the Washington Post and it summarized it for you so that you have a good idea of what this comprehensive thing is about. So it's talking somewhere in here, talks about the Philippines, but it does not include that in the text headline up here, nor is that the very first item listed. It's doing this as a summary of the entire message. And that's done with the Apple Intelligence. This, because it is coming from someplace else, Apple does have to refer back to the Washington Post. But when it does it very different way than anybody else. It sends back a token and it says this token was sent by this user for some information. So when it gets to Apple, Apple then goes out and gets a response, sends it back to that token, and then throws it away. So nobody can actually see how you use Apple Intelligence. They can't track you. This is very different from what Microsoft is doing. This is very different from what ChatGPT is doing. This is very different from what Twitter is doing, Facebook is doing. It's very different from what everybody else is doing. Google and all the rest of these use your responses to find out what your preferences are so they can sell you stuff. Or in the case of Twitter, they're actually using it to design to build their intelligent AI. So the way in which they handle messages and the way in which it handles email is very different from everybody else out there. And I, for one, am a big fan. Before I continue, any questions about that?
How do you turn that on, or is it on by default?
That's a good question. And that's one of the things that you have complete control over. In the settings up here, when you go down to intelligence right here, this talks about Siri. I focused on Siri, but I can turn off Apple Intelligence by just by flipping that switch. This one slider here. Oh, please. Siri's yelling at me. Just by turning this off, you turn off Apple Intelligence. And it is turned off when you install Sequoia or when you install iOS 18. You have to turn it on. But because of the way Apple Intelligence works, the security on them is just really top notch, and there's really no particular risk. Even if you wander around the house wearing an aluminum hat, you'd probably still find it quite secure. Something also to note, Apple released an update to Sequoia today for some problems with the WebKit. WebKit is used by almost everything, and the JavaScript, which is it's a language that works within WebKit. They made some updates to cut down a couple of security holes, and it's also out for the iPad and the iPhone and all the rest of those things. But that came out today. Another thing that I found out, if you press a window all the way up, and it's not doing it for me because I probably it expands to the width of the screen. If you pull it down, it doesn't, and it's not doing what I wanted it to do. But so I will turn this off because it's annoying me. If you want to know how to screw something up, just do a demo in front of people, and then that'll teach you. Another way that Apple Intelligence is showing up is a kind of a subtle one, and I got to quit out of messages, and that is in photos. And it's not going to be obvious today because I imported a whole bunch of photos and it still hasn't figured out what it's doing. But um, Peter, my fake person, now has 6,017 photos in his photo library. And how do I keep Peter from having my photo library? Peter's photo library is on this disk inside of this folder called Peter. And this is his photo library. By double clicking on a photo library, you make it the default photo library. So I created an empty photo library, put it in Peter's directory, and now when Peter clicks on it, that becomes his photo library. I wanted it there because it's not on my boot drive, because if it's on my boot drive, it just gradually takes over the entire world and it's full of Peter's photos instead of mine. All these photos really are mine, but I want to show it for a demo. The library hasn't changed much for some things, like the library itself shows you a bunch of stuff, and you can change how big the photos are by playing around with this slider up at the top. I tend to like it slightly larger than a lot of people because I like to look at details. The favorites hasn't changed that much. Recently saved hasn't changed that much. The map shows you where some photos are taken. Like, for example, if I move this around, you'll see that some of these were taken in England and some of these were taken in Finland, but most of them are taken in the United States. If you just add up all these numbers, you'll see that that's a couple thousand photos, but it's not 6,000. Why don't most of the photos show up? Ideas?
GPS is not enabled.
Yes, I shot these on a full frame camera. I shot them on a Sony Alpha 7, and the Sony Alpha 7 does not have a GPS chip. So when it takes the photos, it's not recording the location. Whereas when I shoot things with my iPhone, it records the location. You can go out and buy a several $100 device that clips onto the Sony that'll save the GPS information. But at that point, an already cumbersome camera becomes an even more cumbersome camera. If I'm intelligent, when I go places, I try to always take at least one photo with my iPhone, because that way it saves the GPS information, and that way I can locate where the photos go. But if it's not on the map, it means there was no GPS information, and that's usually because I shot it with a real camera rather than my iPhone. But the map's a nice way of moving things around. That hasn't changed too much. Where it gets interesting, the days is still there. And people, you'll see that it hasn't found any people because I just imported a whole bunch of photographs today and they don't have people. Memories, it still clocks the memories by subjects, either by dates or sometimes by subject. Here, where it says airplanes over the year, for example, this cover photo is my father and his brother aboard the USS Princeton during the Korean War. This was actually taken before I was born. And so it's click on that and it'll play a movie complete with soundtrack, but that's not what I'm doing right now. But that hasn't changed too much. Trips, there are no trips here because I haven't said anything. Recently deleted, one of the things that they did is that now, if you want to see you want to see the album of things that have been deleted, you have to type in a password, which is nice because a lot of people, that's sensitive information. The duplicates function, if you haven't played with the new duplicates function, it's really quite clever. It'll go through your library and it identifies duplicates, and it does them. It looks at the picture overall, but it also looks at the size. So if you have it in different sizes, and none of these are in different sizes. But if it did have it in different sizes, say this one's 272K and this one's 1.4 meg, and you say to get rid of the duplicates to merge them, it will keep the one that's at the higher resolution. You don't have to tell it, it'll just automatically do that. Let's skip down to see if I can find one that's at different sizes. And strangely enough, it seems that I got rid of too many of those. I'm going to show you this. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. It's just an interesting photo. This is a walkway underneath an archway at Trinity College in Dublin. And this looks like brick that's patterned by some kind of tree. No, these are actually pieces of oak that are pounded into the ground, and these steps are several hundred years old, which, among other things, shows you that oak is really tough. But I was I took that photo because I was absolutely fascinated by it. But all of these seem to be the same size, so I can't show you my magic trick. But if they were different size and I told it to merge it, it'll keep the highest resolution one automatically. And it goes through, it does a much better job than any other duplicate finder I've ever seen for photos. Shows the photos that recently saved, recently viewed, recently edited, imports. It's going to show lots of imports because there are lots of them. But where it really gets interesting is now for media types. It separates videos, so you can actually look at videos. This is looking out at the water while I'm traveling between Victoria and Port Angeles. This is a fountain at Bouchard Gardens. And I shot this at time lapse, so it's a really rapid fountain. And here's a merry-go-round again at Bouchard Gardens. And there's music, but that you probably can't hear. Another fountain in Victoria that is more interesting at night than it is during the daytime. Daytime is kind of boring, but at night it's really cool. But anyway, it shows you videos. Selfies. These are all selfies, and you'll notice that there's no picture of a person in it anywhere at all. And that's because a selfie means it was shot with the front-facing camera. This is the underside of my table. I wanted to see where the latches were, and I didn't want to crawl under my table. This is a ceiling of York Minster in York, England. And I could try and bend myself backwards to take a picture of the ceiling, or I can hold the phone flat and use the front-facing camera. But because it's using the front-facing camera, it says it's a selfie. This was also in York Minster, and this is in York Minster. So anything that's taken with the front-facing camera, it thinks is a selfie. This one, it's doing an analysis of the photograph, and it says this is a portrait. This is in George, Washington, which is a gas stop between here and Spokane. And that is a statue of George Washington in George, Washington. This is this is Jesus and the minister of our church. These were made by an indigenous Indian in South America when he was a missionary for our minister. But Siri, using the artificial intelligence, recognized them as a face, and so it thinks that's a portrait. These were taken in portrait mode. This is a surveyor mark, but I used the portrait mode in the camera. I have no idea why. And I used it here. And again, I have no idea why. So I think they're portraits. Panorama is based upon the aspect ratio. So it thinks these are panoramas, even though these are not panoramas. That's just a line drawing of a jet plane. And if I come up here, this was shot as a panorama. These are the Olympic Mountains, and I'm out at Squim Bay. This is this is a sign over a door that I thought was funny because it's from Harry Potter. And this is looking out towards Orcas Island. This particular photograph, by the way, if I printed it, it's about 6 feet long, the panorama. This is a farm here locally, taken in the wintertime, but it's based upon aspect ratio. This is the side of a box. I just thought it's a ridiculous use of English. If they include it, it's not an option. So I don't know why they said that was optional with that box.
I've got a quick question for you.
Yes.
What kind of printer are you using that does a picture 6 feet long?
I don't print I hardly print anything at all.
Ah,
I'm just saying that if you did print it, it would be about 6 feet long.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, this is Dungeness Spit, for example. And this is what I want to show you. This is Meteor Crater, which is a huge crater in Arizona from a meteor that hit a long time ago. Um, and you can go. It's a privately owned park. You have to pay money to get into it. But these are based upon aspect ratio. So it's using intelligence to say, okay, based upon this aspect ratio, this is probably a panorama, even though most of these are not. It knows what a time lapse is. So this is a merry-go-round near Manchester, England. This is at a shopping center of all places. And that is this is actually at high speed. Um, I did a time lapse, so it looks really, really fast. And here we have some high speed elk going out and doing their thing. But those are time lapses. It's the same thing for the slow motion. This is a sculpture in front of the building that I worked at NOAA, and it does wave patterns. And when you slow it down, you can actually get a better feel for how waves are formed. I used this in a presentation on how waves were formed because it was a lot easier than going to the ocean, which National Ocean Service is 150 miles from the ocean, which is kind of awkward. Cinematic, this is a mode on the camera, and every time I used it, it was an accident, so I'm not going to bother to show this. Bursts are several photographs in one, and you can kind of go through them by saying make a selection, and you can pick out which photograph you want. Bursts are useful if you want to take a photograph of something that why can't I get back to where I was? Windows. And someone is calling me.
That would be me. It looks like way over on the right-hand side, it might say done. There it is.
Oh, it's covered by the interface for Zoom. I have extra menus than you do because I'm running the meeting, but unfortunately those it knows when you used the computer to take a screenshot, so it's categorizes that. Knows when you made an animated photo. This is an animated photo of my infant granddaughter looking at ducks. And raw photos. A raw photo is a way of taking a photograph that saves all the information the camera can take. And you can use a raw photo to then make adjustments to the non-destructive adjustments to a photograph in ways that you can't otherwise. And the newest Apple iPhones have a way to shoot raw photos. It's one of the options. If you go into the camera setting, you can shoot raw photos. The good news is that it makes it much easier to do really complex editing of photographs. The bad news is that the photographs are much larger. The raw photos, when I shoot with this phone, the raw photos are like 43, 45 megabytes in size. So quite a bit larger than normal. It can also tell the difference between a drawing and a black and white photograph. And I had to tell it airplanes, but that I wanted pictures of airplanes, but it knows now that I told it what an airplane is, it's gradually adding from all of the photographs that I took today, it's adding more photographs. At the start of the day, it had 4 aircraft, and now it's got hundreds. And ships, the same thing. It knows what a ship is, so it sit there and is finding more ships and telling me about it. But I wanted to show you in particular what you can do with some of the features in terms of editing. I want to find a dark photograph. Here's a fairly dark photograph. I'm going to duplicate this photo so that you can see the kind of before and after. And this is a raw photo. Open it up, and at the top, there is this thing that looks like a magic wand. If I press that magic wand, it will go through and make adjustments to the photograph. And you notice that light made it lighter all by itself. It did several other things too, but that's the most easily recognizable thing. But there's a scale here that I can drag it and make it even lighter still. And in the background, what you see is you see the what looks like a hangar off of an aircraft carrier. This is actually inside of the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Akron, Ohio. And this is what is this? A-1. It's a propeller-driven attack plane that was used it came out in 1946, so it just missed the um, World War II. This one plane, it's a single seat plane, can carry as much a bomb load greater than a B-17 of World War II. It's a single seat fighter plane, bomber. And the other nice thing about it is that it was designed for carriers. So this thing can take off and land from carriers. And I happen to be an airplane fanatic, so I took this photograph. If we go back, we say it's done, and we look at the photographs side by side, here is the original, and here is the one that I modified. And you'll notice the one I modified, it shows a great deal more detail. And I can actually blow this up so you can see it slightly better. You can see that it's a lot more detail shows up. And a lot of this is done with just the editing built into photos. But right now with the Apple Intelligence, it does a much better job than it has in the past. And the intelligence, again, doesn't need to go off your computer or off of your phone or off of your iPad. It's built into your machine. It can do things that it couldn't do before. And it's based upon the fact that it knows what the human eye, it's been taught what the human eye can see. And if it's too dark, then maybe it should make it lighter. But it also knows that some things are designed to be dark. Like this area back here, there's no lights back there. So just leave that alone and concentrate on the things that you are really in your frame of reference for looking at a photo of a plane. And it can also tell screenshots, knows a screenshot from some other kinds of things. And selfies we mentioned earlier when it was looking at selfies up here, but that's also a project type now. And you can also create projects and doing certain things. You can tell it to go through and just look for certain things and save them as an album, all kinds of neat things to do. One thing I'm not going to do, but I'm going to show you how to do. If you have a bunch of stuff organized in a directory on your hard drive, you can then tell it to go and import it. And where is it? Video stash old. Got to sort these. Helsinki. I'm going to pick this one. I'm going to say review for import. I press this button and it brings up everything, and that one's kind of boring, so let's not do that. Try this one, review for import. It loads thumbnails of everything in that folder. And then up at the top, it gives you some options. One is to import all new photos. You can also go through and just select the ones you want. But the other thing you can do is say, keep folder organization. And if you do that, it comes up and creates these folders over on the side. This is the San Diego Flying Leatherneck Aviation Museum. So all the photographs in here are from that. Pensacola National Naval Museum of Aviation, Patuxent River Naval Air Museum, San Diego Air and Space Museum, Pima Air Museum, Air Force Armament Museum, Air and Space. You get the impression that I like to go to Air Museum. That's true. But what what I'm trying to get at is that by using the import and importing a folder, you can not only import a folder, but you can also collectively gather together photographs from a particular trip or from an old camera or something that you scanned in on your scanner. And it comes in with a level of organization that you wouldn't get if you just grabbed a bunch of stuff and threw it in there. So uh, but all these are photographs from Helsinki on a particular day. So if I press this button, it will import them all. And I don't want to do that because that'll take a while. And with that, I'm going to stop the share and ask if there are questions.
Could you go back to that raw photo that you modified and take out the airplane that's above the one that the bomber you were talking about?
Yes, you can. I'm not going to do that because it's not a great photo for doing something like that. There's a lot of things that are dim, and it's not a sharp outline. You are better off with something that is a less complex photo. Like you have two people in a park, and there are trees in the background, and you want to get rid of one of them. It's really fairly easy to concentrate on that one person and make that one person disappear. In a complex photo with that, with a bunch of dim light, it's a much harder task. You can do it. The other thing to note, I was showing this to my daughter, and she had mixed feelings about it because I got rid of my granddaughter's best friend by removing him from a photo. And she said, "Oh, your granddaughter's not going to like that." The There was my granddaughter and this boy standing next to him. I got rid of the boy. It was in a classroom. It did a good job on the background in a classroom, which is a fairly cluttered thing. It did a terrible job on the floor. The floor was a parquet floor where you have these square tiles that alternate in arrangements, wooden parquet floor. When it reconstructed the floor, it looked obvious that something had happened there. It didn't look like a parquet floor. It was the right color and tone and so on and so forth, but it was no longer this nice geometric floor because the artificial intelligence couldn't quite figure out what to do with that stuff. So you can do that sort of thing, but it's usually with simpler, I shouldn't say simpler, usually with things that have much better contrast and much better lighting and um, not as many things to deal with. A great example of something that you can do without much effort at all. Liz Truss, who was the Prime Minister of Great Britain for a fairly short period of time, made the mistake of showing up on camera in a lime green dress. And lime green happens to be a real easy color to have a color key. And so people were taking her dress and they were turning it into a Hawaiian luau dress and a suit of armor and all kinds of things just by imposing a pattern on top of that green dress. So if you have something that has good contrast um, and good lighting, it's much easier to manipulate than something that's got a whole bunch of dull not very well lit things. It also doesn't work on things that are in poor focus. Um, I had somebody wanted me to have a sharper image of their grandfather in this old photograph, but the old photograph was out of focus, and it was really can't do much with that. You cannot make a photograph sharper. You can make it less distinct, but you can't make it sharper. Other questions?
I have one. Does Apple employ Chat GPT anywhere in its Apple Intelligence?
The answer is not now, but they are going to. If you watch their keynote, they are going to, in the future, allow you to be doing things like when you want an image, you want an image of a dragon reading a annual report, and you want to paste it into pages to send out to people. Uh, that's something that they're working on. They're rolling out the Apple Intelligence in phases for a couple reasons. One is that it's easier to do that way. adding Apple Intelligence. Oh, I want to show you another demonstration before I leave. By doing it in phases, they can avoid a lot of the mistakes that a lot of other people have made. Um, I don't know if all of you, how many of you have paid attention to Chat GPT, but one of the things it can do is it can make images that don't exist in reality. And it still hasn't figured out how many fingers humans have. Quite often it'll generate a photograph and look at the hands, and the hands have 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 fingers. I actually had a photograph, an image that I used several months ago when it was a picture that I used on it for a smug meeting. It's a princess. And if you look at her hands, one of her hands has 6 fingers. Um, because, it's just, that's an arbitrary number of things as far as ChatGPT is concerned. So they want to avoid the mistakes that others have made. The other thing is that a lot of the technologies are fairly useless, and they want to focus on things that people can actually use. And I'll give you an example of something that you can use right now with Apple's intelligence. So it's being rolled out in phases. Later on, there is going to be ChatGPT, but it'll probably come up with some privacy and security guardrails on it that don't exist right now. So Apple has to add them, and that's a little bit complicated. And it may not be ChatGPT because Apple's been working with Adobe and Microsoft. Microsoft has their own AI and a bunch of others. I can tell you right now, they're not working with Meta. Meta's working on their own artificial intelligence things. It's got so many security holes that nobody really wants to use it other than Meta. It's just it's a complicated thing, and they're doing it in phases. But I forgot one part of my demo though, so I'm going to go back for that for a second. And let's get out of photos and bring up mail. I'm going to compose a message. So here's my message, and we're going to send this to Strait Mac Vice President. And it's going to be called You, which is always ominous. And I'm going to show you 3 different paragraphs here. As my congressional representative, you should know that you are a stinking cesspool of corruption with the morals of an alley cat and the courage of an ostrich, your behavior, blah, blah, blah. I go up here to this little symbol here is for Apple Intelligence, and it does writing tools. So I click on that, and it gives me friendly, professional, concise. I press concise, and it comes back and says, writing tools aren't designed to work with this type of content. Well, so if you want to send strange letters to your congressman, they need to be a little bit more sane. Here is a different kind of letter. It says, by close of the business, the T sheet should be processed, minutes should be typed up, collated, and distributed, so on and so forth. It's a standard short business email. And you want it to be concise, and it sits there and it rewrites it, and it's shorter than it was before. Or you come up here and we tell it to I'm going to go back. How do I revert it? There was a button and I didn't push it. So I'll paste it in again. Concise made it shorter. If I come here and say that I want it to be friendly, now it says, by the end of the day, we'll need to wrap up. It's making it plural rather than a command. It says that we're all in this together, and it says thanks. And if I say reverse and I want it to be professional, it comes back and it basically makes it more complete sentences. And it breaks it up. Instead of one sentence, it's now several sentences. So that's Apple Intelligence applied to email, and it also works in certain other things. And now I'm going to show you my third example, which might be the most impressive. This is a one sentence legal statement. One sentence from beginning to end, just one sentence. And you say that you want this to be concise, and it makes it much, much, much shorter and still fairly readable. If we say that we want it to be friendly, it makes it into multiple sentences and actually multiple paragraphs. And if we say that we want it to be professional, it breaks it up into multiple sentences and it's one paragraph. But this is actually fairly impressive because I checked over what it did, and it's saying the same thing, but now it's saying it in English rather than this impossible. I think there are 169 words in this one sentence, which is just impossible to read. And that's built into Apple Intelligence and Mail if you want to use it now. And again, for this type of work, it does not need to go out and ask the internet. It's all of this, it does it right on your computer. So if you want to straighten up your writing in Mail, you can do that now. And any other questions?
Yeah, I tried that using non-Apple applications, and it works if you pull right-click a contextual menu. Writing tools come up in the contextual menu on anything that has text, whether it's from Apple or not.
You're talking about a third party?
Yeah,
The problem with here's two reasons why I don't like that. One is they get a copy of your text. It's their property as soon as you use it.
like Microsoft?
Yes.
Really? Microsoft Word?
Microsoft Word, yes. Grammarly does this, Microsoft does this because they use that text to train their engines. Apple doesn't do that.
There's no
Although
way to turn that off?
there's if you use that feature, you're talking to Microsoft.
Wow. Didn't know that.
Well, try not logging into Microsoft and using Word, and you'll find out it doesn't work.
Well, I don't log into Microsoft. I have a standalone copy of Word.
Okay, then you're using the older version. There's a newer,
That's the older version.
yeah, the older version doesn't talk to Microsoft. I don't know, it might. Yeah, because yeah, you have to log into Microsoft because if you were to do a clean install, Word won't launch until you log into Microsoft and verify the copy. And when you verify the copy from that point on, if you use some of those tools, they talk to Microsoft.
Yeah, see, I could use Word with the internet off, and it's fine.
Yes, under that condition it does. But for the most part, if you're using Microsoft 365 or you're using Grammarly or any other tool,
Yeah,
it's
no.
it's sending all that stuff off to Microsoft. Uh,
Wow.
or to Grammarly or whoever has it. And the nice thing about what Apple's doing is no, it takes place just on your computer.
But it is a nice feature to just hit the contextual menu to get a writing tools out.
Yeah. You just have to you have to know the limitations and dangers of some of the technologies. Um, and
In Google Mail, the same thing, right? If you're
yes,
doing Google Mail, you could just right click and bring up the contextual menu. It gives you writing tools.
yes,
Is
it
that
does.
Google?
Yes, everything you do with Google is on the web. Google is only a website. If you wonder why Google sorts your Gmail a particular way, each message is a separate web page. That's why they call them labels rather than folders. There are no folders. It's just a
Ah,
web page. And
all
you're
right.
tagging it and you're saying this thing belongs to this. And that's why you can have multiple tags on a single message because there's
Right.
only one copy because it's just a single web URL.
So Google has access to that.
Yep. Now, Google says that it's private. And if you have a Google corporate account, like for example, NOAA, when I was at NOAA, we picked Google to be our corporate mail provider. If you are a government agency and you're using Google as your mail provider, you get your own separate cloud that's not shared with the rest of Google. But when you're using Gmail, it's just shared with all the rest of Google. So it uses it for figuring out spelling mistakes and all kinds of other things.
Right.
It constantly is training it. That doesn't mean that it's easy for them to individually track you. I'm just saying that that's how it works. So
Right.
if somebody really wanted to go to the effort, yeah, they can get you. As an example, when this is not a slam at Google, it's just explaining how some of this stuff works. When Obama was trying to get members of his cabinet together, after he won the election and he was vetting people, he found a lawyer who would go through the process of looking over their biographies and so on and so forth, and their taxes and so on and so forth. That lawyer had an old Gmail account that he wasn't using anymore. And instead, he was doing all the vetting on his new government email service. But everybody who was sending him things was sending them from their private accounts because they weren't in government yet. And so they didn't have a government account. And someone sent a piece of spyware to one of those people that ended up on this lawyer's account. And all of the vetting documents for all of his cabinet members, which are income tax records and police reports and all the rest of them, were picked up by a hacker. And that's because it's connected.
Right.
And the way that they got in was by using that old Gmail account. The hacker got access to the old Gmail account by just guessing a password. And he got in and he wrote to the secretary saying, oh, by the way, I'm in such and such, because this guy was a lawyer and he flies around, and he was seen shaking hands with some guy. He says, I'm in such and such and I forgot the password. Could you reset my password to be such and such? And the message was coming from this lawyer's account. It was a Gmail account to the secretary. So the secretary reset the password, and in the
Oh,
process released all that information to the hacker.
wow.
This is why it's a good thing to use artificial intelligence school tools that aren't shared by anybody else. And that's why I really like the way that Apple is doing this.
Gotcha.
And
Thank you.
that's also why it's slowly rolling out. So if you want to have a picture of a dragon reading the New York Times, you're going to have to wait.
Yeah, I turned on the Apple Intelligence thing and it put me on a waiting list. What's
Oh,
up with that?
that I don't understand. All right. I don't understand that because it accepted me instantly. So
Maybe that was before a whole lot of other people were doing it yet when you did it, and there's lots of us now trying.
well, there's also an update. The update that came out today, I know, is going to put increased strain on the infrastructure as they download the update. It's possible also if you haven't updated that maybe it won't allow you to do that until you install the update. So it was working for me before the update, but quite often when Apple has something that they want everybody to use, they'll say, you cannot go into the mall crawl until you do this first. I don't know. I've never seen that pop up. So that's news to me.
Yeah, that's weird. There is a new update today, 18.1.1 for my phone, and I haven't done it, even though I got automatic updates on.
Well, yes, but when they just come out, that means it's going to be automatically updated over the next day or two. If
Uh,
you if you want to be impatient like me, you do it manually. Um, Question for next month. Are we going to have a meeting next month? Or are we all going to sit around the campfire and hope the power comes back on after a windstorm? Or if we don't do that, then do we have a topic?
Can we sit around the campfire?
I'm at your disposal here. So what do you want to do?
Well,
There's so much that goes
the
on at
third
Christmas.
Tuesday is pretty close to Christmas, isn't it?
I'm not sure the exact date, but yes, it's the third Tuesday. So, whenever that is.
It's a really busy time of year for our family.
Yeah, our
It would be the 17th.
Yeah, I don't think I would be able to make that one.
Yeah, it's exactly a week before Christmas Eve. So, do you want to punt and work on January?
Yeah, I'd vote for that.
I shall do that. Also, a reminder that if you have questions for me, I much prefer that you ask them on the discussion board on the website. It's much easier for me to answer one question that many people see than to answer the same question from many different people. So that's it's just easier on me if you do that. Ask on the discussion board. Anything else?
Nope.
Okie doke. I thank you and
Thank you. Thank you.
see you in January.
Thank,
Lawrence.
thank you again.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.